AITA for leaving after my girlfriend admitted she'd been seeing someone else for 6 months? I'm Henry, 34, and until that dinner, I honestly thought I was the boyfriend who had done the boring things right. Tessa and I had been together for almost 5 years. I knew how she liked her coffee, kept a spare charger in my car because she always forgot hers, and could tell from the way she shut a cabinet whether she was irritated or just tired. I was the one who booked reservations, paid deposits, compared cancellation policies, and made sure nobody got stranded when plans fell apart. I used to think that made me dependable. Lately, Tessa had started saying it made me predictable. When we first got together, she loved that I was steady. That was the word she used. Steady. She said being around me made her feel like she could take risks because I would never let the floor disappear under her. Tessa was the opposite of me in ways I admired. She could turn a grocery run into a 2-hour detour because she spotted a roadside market. She made friends in checkout lines. She ordered food without reading every ingredient and somehow always liked what she got. When she talked about the future, it sounded less like a plan and more like a door she expected us to walk through together. For years, we worked. Sunday mornings meant coffee and breakfast at my place. Thursday nights usually meant takeout and whatever show we had been pretending not to watch without each other. We had talked about marriage without setting a date. We had talked about combining more of our lives without forcing it. I thought we were moving carefully toward something permanent. Then, over the last year, the meaning of steady changed. At first, it was teasing. You always order the same thing. You plan vacations like a military operation. You know spontaneous people don't need 3 confirmation emails, right? I laughed because some of it was true. Then the joke sharpened. You never take risks. You're always worried about what could go wrong. You make everything feel safe. The last one confused me because she said it with the same tone someone might use for stale bread. I tried asking what she needed. More excitement. I said one night while we were cleaning up dinner. What does that mean to you? Tessa rolled her eyes and dropped a fork into the sink. See? That. You want a definition for everything. I'm trying to understand. You always say that when you want me to defend how I feel. That became a pattern. If I asked a question, I was interrogating her. If I stayed quiet, I was emotionally unavailable. If I planned something, I was controlling. If I asked her to choose, I was making her carry the relationship. Around the same time, her phone started living face down. She changed her passcode and shrugged when I noticed. It's good digital hygiene, she said. She began canceling plans at the last minute. Sometimes she said she needed space. Sometimes she said one of her friends was having a rough night. Once she disappeared for almost 4 hours after telling me she was going to grab coffee with Camila. When she finally answered, I asked where she had been. You never used to track me, she said. I'm not tracking you. You said coffee. It's almost 10. You're making this about your anxiety. I texted twice. That's twice too many when I told you I needed space. I remember standing in my kitchen with the phone against my ear, staring at the half-finished dinner I had kept warm for her. I felt embarrassed, not because I had done anything wrong, but because she sounded so certain that I had. I apologized. That was another pattern. Derek became more visible around then. He was 36 and had been part of the wider friend circle for a couple of years. I never considered him a close friend, but I knew him well enough to recognize his style. He liked speaking in calm, polished sentences that sounded reasonable until you examined what he was actually saying. He used phrases like emotional honesty, authentic connection, and choosing growth. At a backyard cookout, he told Miles that jealousy was usually a fear response disguised as a boundary. At another gathering, he spent 20 minutes explaining that long-term relationships failed when people valued security over intensity. Tessa listened like he was saying something important. I remember Derek looking across the patio at me and saying, some people need partners who challenge them, not just protect the status quo. I looked up from the cooler. Funny, I said. I don't remember asking for a panel. Avery laughed. Bryce did not. Bryce had been one of my closest friends for years. He was the person I would call when my car battery died or when I needed someone to tell me I was overthinking something. He was also the person who most benefited from my habit of organizing everything. When our group planned a trip, Bryce would say, Henry, just grab the place. We'll pay you back. Sometimes they did quickly. Usually they did not. The upcoming trip was supposed to be 4 nights at a rental house with a large kitchen, a fire pit, and enough rooms that nobody had to sleep on a couch. I had booked the house, put down the deposit, reserved 2 activities, and fronted game tickets for the first night. I was not rich. I was organized. There is a difference people love to ignore when they benefit from it. The rental alone required a large deposit. I sent payment requests to everyone with plain descriptions and dates. Bryce paid part of his share. Miles said he would send his after payday. Jordan said her bank app was acting up. Avery paid immediately. Camila paid half. Tessa had not paid anything because we usually treated trips as shared couple expenses and settled them later. A few weeks before the trip, I considered canceling it. Tessa had been distant, and the whole group felt strange around me. Conversations stopped when I walked into rooms. People asked about the trip, but avoided asking how Tessa and I were doing. Camila looked guilty every time Derek's name came up. Bryce kept steering everything back to the reservation. "Don't overthink things before the trip, man," he told me one evening. Everybody's stressed. I looked at him. Why does everyone keep saying before the trip like it's a deadline? He gave a quick laugh. You know what I mean. I did not. Not then. The dinner happened on a Friday night at Jordan's place. It was supposed to be casual, takeout, drinks, and a card game that always got louder than it needed to. I arrived with 2 bags of food because Jordan had texted that the delivery estimate was bad. Tessa was already there. She had arrived with Derek. They were sitting on the same side of the table when I walked in. Not touching, exactly, but close enough that their shoulders nearly met. Tessa looked up and smiled too brightly. "Oh, hey," she said. I set the food down. "Did you 2 come together?" Tessa glanced at Derek before answering. He was nearby. It was just easier. Easier than coming with me? Why are you making that sound weird? I looked around the room. Bryce was opening a beer and staring hard at the bottle cap. Camila was arranging napkins that did not need arranging. Miles suddenly became interested in the food containers. Jordan said, "Can we just eat before everything gets cold?" That should have been enough. It was not. I told myself not to be the jealous boyfriend. I told myself there could be a normal explanation. I sat down across from Tessa and tried to participate. Nobody finished the card game. Halfway through dinner, Derek rested his hand on the back of Tessa's chair. It was brief, casual enough to deny, familiar enough that I noticed. So did everyone else. Bryce immediately asked Miles about a basketball game. A few minutes later, Tessa's phone lit up on the table. It was angled toward me because she had set it beside her glass. The preview showed Derek's name. After tonight, no more pretending. I did not pick up the phone. I did not touch it. I just read the words that appeared in front of me. My body went cold. "Tessa," I said. She looked at me. What does no more pretending mean? The room went silent in a way that answered before she did. Derek took his hand off her chair. Tessa stared at her phone, then at him, then back at me. For 1 second, she looked afraid. Then her expression settled. Not guilty. Resolved. "I didn't plan to do this here," she said. Jordan exhaled through her nose like I had created an inconvenience. "Do what?" I asked. Tessa folded her hands on the table. "I didn't do this to hurt you." That sentence is never followed by anything decent. "How long?" I asked. She pressed her lips together. "Henry." "How long?" Derek leaned back in his chair. "This is messy," he said, "but adults can be honest about messy things." I looked at him. "I didn't ask you." Tessa's face tightened. "About 6 months." The room seemed to tilt without moving. I looked from her to Derek. "You've been sleeping together for 6 months?" Tessa flinched at the wording. "We've been seeing each other. You were my girlfriend." "I know." She looked away. "I've been unhappy for a long time." I waited for an apology. Instead, she gave me an explanation. She said Derek made her feel alive. She said I had become too cautious, too routine, too focused on plans and boundaries. She said she needed someone who challenged her. Someone who understood that relationships were supposed to evolve. Then she smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the small, defensive smile people use when they know they are about to say something cruel and want to pretend they are being brave. "I needed to feel wanted by someone who actually acts like a man," she said. "You're safe, Henry. You're not exciting." I heard Camila whisper, "Tessa," but nobody told her to stop. Derek looked at me with the patient expression of someone waiting for a child to understand a lesson. Maybe this is your chance to handle it like an adult, he said. I looked around the table. Jordan would not meet my eyes. Miles stared at his plate. Avery looked stunned, but not surprised. Bryce watched me carefully. Not my face. My hands. He was waiting to see what I would do. That was when I understood that the confession was new to me and almost nobody else. You knew? I said. No one answered. Which of you knew? Jordan crossed her arms. Tessa has been unhappy for a long time. She was trying to figure out how to tell you. By sleeping with Derek for 6 months? You don't have to make this uglier, she said. Miles cleared his throat. You two were already having problems. I looked at him. That's interesting. I didn't know the relationship had a committee. Come on, man, Bryce said. Relationships are complicated. Did you know? He rubbed the back of his neck. I knew things were messy. That is not what I asked. Henry, Tessa said, at least I'm telling you now. Now? In front of everyone. I knew if I did it privately, you'd make it about your boundaries. For a moment, I could not speak. Not because I had nothing to say, because too many things suddenly made sense at once. The canceled dinners. The turned-over phone. Derek knowing details about Tessa's moods. The group going quiet when I entered rooms. Bryce telling me not to overthink anything before the trip. The trip. The rental house in my name. The deposits on my card. The activity reservations I had fronted. The tickets I had bought because everyone promised to reimburse me. I looked at Bryce. What happens after the trip? His face changed. It was small, but I saw it. Tessa said, this isn't about the trip. Then why does everyone keep talking like it is? Jordan pushed her chair back. You're spiraling. No, I said. I'm catching up. Tessa reached toward me, and I moved my hand away before she touched it. Henry, don't do anything dramatic. I stared at her. She had admitted to cheating on me for half a year in front of people who had helped her hide it. She had insulted my masculinity, defended her affair, and still believed the next dangerous thing in the room was my reaction. I pulled my key ring from my pocket. Tessa's spare key was on a small silver clip. I removed it and placed it beside my glass. Jordan said, Henry, don't make this uglier. I stood. You all already did. Bryce moved like he was going to get up. Just don't blow everything up tonight. I looked at him. You all already made the scene. I'm just leaving it. I walked out. I made it to my car before my hands started shaking. I sat behind the wheel with the doors locked and the engine off. Through the dining room window, I could see people moving around. Tessa stood with one hand pressed to her forehead. Derek was talking to Bryce. Jordan looked angry. Nobody came outside to apologize. My phone buzzed twice. Tessa, please don't be childish. Then, we need to talk before you start making decisions. I did not answer. I opened the Notes app and typed the date, time, who was present, and the exact words I could remember. Not because I was building a case. Because I knew that by morning, they would start editing the night. I waited until my hands stopped shaking, then drove away. At home, I walked through rooms that still had pieces of Tessa in them. A sweater over the back of a chair. Her skincare products in the bathroom. A mug she had bought because she said mine were all too plain. I almost called her. That is the part one I'm least proud of. For maybe 10 minutes, I wanted to hear her say she had panicked. I wanted her to tell me the 6 months had been a lie, or that she had only kissed him, or that she had said those things because she felt cornered. I wanted a smaller betrayal. Then my phone rang. Bryce. I let it go to voicemail. Tessa called next. Then Jordan. Then Bryce again. I turned the phone face down and opened my email. The rental confirmation was easy to find. I had started because the cancellation window ended in 2 days. The house was booked in my name and charged to my card. The terms allowed cancellation with a partial refund. I would lose part of the deposit, but keeping the reservation would leave me responsible for the property and the remaining balance. I read the policy twice. Then I canceled. The confirmation arrived less than a minute later. Reservation canceled. Partial refund initiated. I saved the email. Next, I checked the activity reservations. One was fully refundable. The other charged a small cancellation fee. I canceled both. The game tickets could not be refunded, but they could be transferred. I listed them for resale. Then I looked at the shared services under my name. Tessa used my streaming account, music plan, grocery membership, and a couple of other small services we had combined because it was convenient. I removed her profile where I could and changed only passwords for accounts that belonged to me. I did not touch anything that was hers. At 11:42 p.m., I sent her one message. Do not come by tonight. The accounts under my name will be changed tonight. Anything that belongs to you can be picked up Saturday between 10 and noon. Please confirm by text. I'm keeping everything in writing. Her reply came immediately. You're proving my point right now. I did not respond. Then I opened my payment app. Bryce owed me $420 for his remaining lodging share and 2 game tickets. Miles owed $310. Jordan owed $275. Camila owed $180. Avery was paid in full. I sent each person an individual request with the amount, date, and description. Bryce, you owe $420 for the lodging deposit and game tickets I covered on June 11th. Please send it by Friday. I'm keeping money separate from the breakup, and I'm not discussing Tessa here. Miles, you owe $310 for the lodging deposit and activity reservation I covered on June 11th. Please send it by Friday. Jordan, you owe $275 for the lodging deposit I covered on June 11th. Please send it by Friday. Camila, you owe $180 for the remaining lodging deposit I covered on June 11th. Please send it by Friday. Bryce replied first. Seriously? Then, the trip didn't have to become part of this. I typed several answers and deleted them. Finally, I sent. The trip was booked in my name and paid from my card. It is canceled. The request is for the unrecovered portion and non-refundable tickets assigned to you. He called again. I did not answer. By midnight, I had separated everything I reasonably could. I put Tessa's belongings into clean boxes, not trash bags. Clothes in one, bathroom items in another, books and small things in a third. I photographed the contents before sealing them. It felt cold. It also felt necessary. I did not sleep much. When I finally opened my eyes the next morning, pale light was coming through the blinds and my phone was vibrating against the nightstand. There were 46 missed calls. Tessa had called 17 times. Bryce had called 11. Jordan, 6. Derek, 4. Miles, 3. The rest were from Camila, Avery, and 2 numbers I did not recognize. There were also 29 text messages and 9 voicemails. I made coffee before listening to any of them. Tessa's first voicemail had been left at 12:08 a.m. Henry, call me back. You can't just cancel everything because your pride got hurt. People paid for time off. This affects everyone. Her second was softer. I know you're upset, but you're being cruel. We should talk before you do more damage. By the 5th, she was crying. You're making me look like some villain. Bryce's voicemail was mostly about the trip. Man, this is getting out of hand. I was trying to keep the group from falling apart. Nobody wanted you to get hurt, but canceling the house screws everybody. Call me. Derek's voice was calm. Henry, you crossed a line by turning a personal issue into financial retaliation. Maybe don't turn pain into control. Call me when you're ready to have an adult conversation. I laughed once when I heard that. Not because it was funny. Because Derek had spent 6 months sleeping with my girlfriend and still believed he was the authority on restraint. The last voicemail was from one of the numbers I did not recognize. It had been left at 7:16 that morning. A woman spoke carefully. Hi, Henry. My name is Paige. I don't know you personally, and I'm not calling to fight with you. I'm calling because I need the truth. Derek told me he was alone last night thinking about us. Someone said he was at dinner with Tessa. I need to know if that's true. Please call me back. I listened twice. Then I sat down. I knew Derek had dated someone named Paige. I had heard the name months earlier, but the way people talked made it sound like they were over. Apparently, Paige had not received that information. I called her once. She answered on the first ring. Henry. Yes. She exhaled. I'm sorry. I know this is probably the worst possible time. It's not your fault. What did Derek tell you? That he needed space. How long ago? About 4 months. But not a breakup. He said he was overwhelmed and needed time to think about our future. Our future, I repeated. We were still together. At least I thought we were. He still came over. We still talked every day. 2 weeks ago, He told me he was looking at rings, but did not want me to pressure him. I closed my eyes. Paige, he was at dinner last night. With Tessa. Yes. There was a long pause. Then she said, I don't need you to convince me. I need the dates. That told me what kind of person she was. She was not looking for a fight. She was checking reality. I'll send only what I can verify, I said. I did not have a recording of Tessa's confession, but I had her messages after I left. At 1:03 a.m., she had sent, I should have told you sooner. At 1:17. Derek and I didn't plan for it to happen. At 1:42. We should have waited until after the trip like we discussed, but that doesn't justify you punishing everyone. That message made me sit very still. We should have waited until after the trip. Not, I should have waited. I took screenshots that showed the timestamps and her name. I saved the message preview I had written down from dinner. I sent Paige the verified timeline and the screenshots by email. My message was short. Paige, I'm sorry you're finding out this way. I'm sending the timeline and screenshots I can verify. I'm not asking you to respond or take my side. She replied 20 minutes later. Thank you. His messages to me overlap. Then she sent her own screenshots. On one night, Tessa had canceled dinner because she said Camila needed her. Derek had told Paige he was going to bed early. On another night, Tessa said she was taking a solo drive to clear her head. Derek told Paige he was helping his brother. There were pictures in the background of both timelines. A restaurant wall, a distinctive glass, a reflection in a window. Nothing magical, nothing impossible. Just two people telling different lies about the same hours. At 9:30, Camila texted me. Can I tell you something without you assuming I was part of all of it? I stared at that wording. Then I replied. Tell me what you know. She called. I did not answer. I texted. In writing. A few minutes passed. Then the messages came. I should have said something sooner. I didn't know everything, but I knew enough. Bryce kept saying it would blow up the trip if it came out before then. I asked. What did he say exactly? Camila sent a screenshot from a smaller group chat I had never been part of. Bryce had written, just keep him calm until after the trip. Tessa can handle it then. If he finds out now, he'll cancel everything. Jordan responded, he doesn't need to be blindsided in front of everyone. Bryce wrote, then don't blindside him. Just keep things normal for 2 more weeks. Tessa had reacted with a thumbs up. I read it until the words stopped looking like language. They had not stayed silent because they were confused. They had not been protecting me from incomplete information. They were managing me. They had calculated that my ignorance was worth preserving until after I paid the remaining balance, checked everyone into the rental, and carried the risk. I sent Camila one message. The trip was already ruined. You just wanted me to pay for the damage. She replied, you're right. Then, I'm sorry. It was not enough, but it was more honest than anything I had heard from the others. By late morning, Tessa had started telling people that I was financially punishing her for leaving me. Avery sent me a screenshot of a message Tessa had posted in a mutual group. I tried to be honest about choosing myself, and Henry responded by cutting off accounts, canceling plans that involved other people, and demanding money. His boundaries feel punitive, and this is exactly why I was afraid to tell him. Jordan replied that Tessa deserved support. Derek wrote, emotional control is still control even when it looks organized. I stared at that sentence and felt something inside me settle. I could have posted every screenshot. I could have written a long explanation. I could have told everyone exactly what Tessa said about my masculinity and exactly how Derek lied to Paige. Instead, I wrote one short statement. I didn't punish anyone. I stopped paying for people who lied to me. The trip was booked in my name and paid from my account. Anyone who wants to discuss money owed can do it in writing. I posted it where the mutual group could see it. No attachments. No rant. No accusations I could not prove. The reaction was immediate. Jordan called me vindictive. Miles asked whether he still had to pay if the trip was canceled. Bryce said I was leaving out context. Avery wrote, what context makes keep him calm until after the trip? Okay. That changed the temperature. I had not sent Avery the screenshot. Camila must have. Tessa texted me privately. You're making me look like some villain. I replied. I'm not editing your choices for better lighting. She called. I declined it. She wrote. Talk to me like a human being. I answered. Put anything you need to say in writing. She did not. The confrontation happened 2 days later. It was not my idea. Bryce proposed a face-to-face conversation because, according to him, texts were making everything worse. Tessa wanted to come. Derek insisted Paige's involvement needed to be addressed. Jordan and Miles said they wanted to clear the air. I agreed on 3 conditions. Public place. 20 minutes. No yelling. We met at a quiet cafe in the middle of the afternoon. I arrived first and chose a table near the front. I brought printed copies of the cancellation email and the payment summary. Everything else was on my phone. Not a folder. Not a presentation. Just the records attached to my name and money. Tessa arrived with Derek. That told me more than any apology could have. Bryce came behind them, followed by Jordan and Miles. Camila arrived separately and sat at the far end of the table. Avery did not come. Tessa looked tired. Her eyes were swollen, and she kept twisting a ring on her finger. For years, seeing her upset had triggered an automatic response in me. Move closer. Fix it. Make the room safer. That response was still there. I did not obey it. Derek sat beside her and folded his hands on the table. Thank you for agreeing to talk, he said. I checked the time. You get 20 minutes. I'm not here for a vote on my breakup. Jordan sighed. This attitude is exactly the problem. No, I said. The affair is the problem. The lying is the problem. My attitude is just the first thing here that stopped being convenient for you. Bryce raised both hands. Can we not start hostile? You asked me here. Start talking. Tessa leaned forward. I know I hurt you. It was the closest she had come to a direct admission. Then she added, but the way you responded has hurt a lot of other people. There it was. I said nothing. She continued. You canceled a trip people planned around. You cut me off without discussion. You contacted Paige. You made private information public. I said I stopped paying for people who lied to me. You knew what people would assume. They assumed correctly. Derek's voice stayed calm. Paige did not need to be dragged into your breakup. I looked at him. Paige was already in it. You just didn't tell her. His jaw tightened. What happened between Paige and me is complicated. Did she know you were sleeping with Tessa? That's not the point. It is exactly the point. He leaned closer. You reached out because you couldn't handle losing. Paige reached out to me because you told her you were alone while you were sitting beside my girlfriend. Tessa flinched. Bryce interrupted. Okay, Derek's situation is separate. We're here about the trip. I turned to him. Of course you are. Henry, people took time off. Some of us moved things around. You could have transferred the booking. It was in my name. You could have let someone take it over. Who? He hesitated. Miles or me. Neither of you had paid your full share. Miles frowned. I told you I was going to. You had 3 weeks. This feels petty. I placed the cancellation email on the table. The remaining balance would have charged to my card. The property liability would have stayed in my name. I canceled within the contract window and accepted the partial loss. That is not petty. That is me removing my money and legal responsibility from a group that hid an affair to preserve a vacation. Jordan crossed her arms. Nobody hid anything for money. Camila looked down. I unlocked my phone and opened Bryce's text. Just keep him calm until after the trip. Tessa can handle it then. If he finds out now, he'll cancel everything. I turned the screen toward them. Nobody spoke. Bryce's face went pale. That was taken out of context. What context helps? I was trying to stop everything from exploding. Until after I paid. No. Until Tessa was ready. Tessa said, I was scared. I opened her message. We should have waited until after the trip like we discussed, but that doesn't justify you punishing everyone. I turned the phone toward her. You were scared enough to wait for my money, but not scared enough to stop sleeping with him. Her eyes filled. That's not fair. Which part? You're making it sound calculated. It was discussed. It was one conversation. Camila finally spoke. No, it wasn't. Everyone looked at her. She swallowed. The timing came up more than once. Tessa stared at her. Camila. I should have said something sooner, Camila said. I didn't know everything, but I knew enough. Bryce kept saying it would blow up the trip. Bryce shook his head. You're acting like I planned the affair. No, I said. You planned around it. Jordan looked at Camila with open irritation. You're making this worse. Camila's voice trembled. It was already worse. We just wanted Henry not to react until it was convenient. That was the first moment anyone at that table said the truth without dressing it in soft language. Derek pushed his chair back slightly. This has become a pile-on. My phone rang. Paige. I had told her when the meeting was happening because Derek had accused me of misleading her. She had said she might call if needed. I answered and put the phone on speaker. Paige, you're on speaker. Derek is here. There was a pause. Then Paige said, Good. Derek's face hardened. This is inappropriate. Paige ignored him. Did he say we were over? Tessa looked at Derek. He said nothing. Paige continued. Because we weren't. He told me he needed space to think about our future. He still stayed at my place. He still told me he loved me. He asked me not to tell people we were struggling because he didn't want opinions. Tessa turned toward him. You said it had been over for months. Derek rubbed a hand over his mouth. It was emotionally over. Paige gave a short, humorless laugh through the phone. That must be why you were asking me to look at apartments with you. Tessa's face changed. Not just hurt. Recognition. She had believed she was the exception. She had thought Derek's dishonesty was proof of his passion for her, not a habit. Derek, she said. He looked at me instead. You did this to humiliate us. I leaned back. No, you did that when you made my humiliation part of your announcement. Tessa's voice broke. You loved being the good guy. This is your revenge. I canceled charges under my name. I asked people to repay money they owed. I gave Paige facts about the man she was still dating. You cut me off overnight. You ended the relationship 6 months ago. You just kept the benefits. She started crying. For a second, nobody moved. Then Jordan reached for her hand and glared at me. Are you happy now? I was not. That was the strange thing. There was no rush of victory. No sudden relief. Just the quiet certainty that I was finally standing in the same reality as everyone else. I didn't come here to be happy, I said. I came here because you demanded an explanation for why I won't pay for people who lied to me. Derek stood. This is between adults. Paige's voice came through the phone. Then try telling the truth like one. He grabbed his jacket and walked out. Tessa watched him leave, but did not follow. That told me their 6-month romance had survived exactly as long as his control over the story. Miles shifted in his seat. So what happens with the money? I looked at him. You pay what you owe. But the trip is canceled. The refund did not cover everything. Your request reflects the unrecovered amount tied to your share and the activity cancellation. He looked at Bryce. Bryce looked at the table. Jordan said, This is unbelievably cold. No, I said. Cold was letting me pay while all of you knew. The 20 minutes were almost up. I collected the papers. Bryce followed me outside. Henry, wait. I stopped near the curb. He looked older than he had inside. I messed up, he said. Yes. I was trying to keep the group from falling apart. You were trying to keep the trip. That's not all it was. Was protecting the trip worth the friendship? He looked down. No. Then why did you do it? I thought you'd cool down after. I stared at him. You thought I'd pay first and feel later. He had no answer. I told him the payment deadline still stood and walked away. Bryce sent the full $420 2 days later. The description said, lodging and tickets. Nothing else. Miles paid after arguing twice. Jordan paid only after I sent the cancellation breakdown showing the refund and fees. She added a note accusing me of transactional thinking. I did not respond. Camila paid what she owed and added an extra amount for part of the loss. I returned the extra. Avery did not owe anything. Tessa never reimbursed me for the portion of the trip that would have been hers. I considered taking her to small claims court, but the amount left after refunds was not worth keeping her attached to my calendar. I wrote it off. Not because she deserved the money. Because I deserved to be done. Saturday morning, Tessa came for her things. I had told her by text that she could arrive between 10 and noon. I asked a mutual acquaintance who had not been involved in the dinner to be present in the building. I kept my door camera on. Tessa arrived at 10:14. She stood outside holding her car keys and looking smaller than I remembered. Can I come in? She asked. Your boxes are here. I don't want to do this on the doorstep. I do. Her mouth tightened. I'm not going to steal anything. I didn't say you were. You're treating me like a threat. I'm documenting the exchange because you've already told people I'm controlling you financially. She looked away. I brought out the first 2 boxes. She did not touch them. Derek wasn't who I thought he was, she said. I waited. He lied to me. Yes. I know you think I deserve that. I think you knew he was capable of lying. You just thought he would only do it for you. Her eyes filled again. I made a mistake. 6 months is not one mistake. I was confused. You were organized enough to wait until after the trip. She wiped at her cheek. I miss your calm. That sentence landed harder than I expected. Not I miss you. Not I love you. She missed the part of me that absorbed chaos for her. I just need closure, she said. No. You want comfort. Why are you being like this? Because you made your choice in public. You don't get to come here privately and ask me to make the consequences feel gentle. She shook her head. You're not the person I thought you were. Neither are you. I brought out the last box. She finally picked one up. At the bottom of the steps, she turned around. Do you hate me? I thought about it. No. That seemed to hurt her more than anger would have. I hope you figure out why honesty only mattered to you after the consequences showed up, I said. Then I went inside and closed the door. She texted me once that afternoon to say she had everything. I replied. Confirmed. After that, I blocked her number. The friend group split almost immediately. Jordan stayed firmly on Tessa's side and continued describing the affair as a messy transition. Miles stopped defending anyone once he realized nobody was organizing the trip anymore. Avery sent me a short apology for staying quiet at dinner. I accepted it without pretending we were close. Camila apologized more than once. Her first apology had been defensive. Her later one was not. She wrote, I wanted to believe staying quiet was neutral because I wasn't the one cheating. It wasn't neutral. I helped manage you for everyone else's comfort. I told her I appreciated the honesty, but trust would not reset because she found the right words. She understood. Paige ended things with Derek the same day as the cafe meeting. She sent me one final message a week later. I'm done with him. Thank you for giving me facts instead of trying to recruit me into your anger. We did not become instant best friends. We did not turn shared betrayal into romance. We checked in twice, wished each other well, and kept moving. Derek tried to contact me through Bryce after Paige blocked him. He claimed I had damaged his reputation by presenting private relationship ambiguity as cheating. I told Bryce not to carry messages for him. Derek's reputation did not collapse because I ran a campaign. It collapsed because when people compared what he told Tessa, Paige, and the rest of us, the mature adult image could not survive the dates. Tessa and Derek did not stay together. I learned that without asking. Avery mentioned that Tessa stopped bringing him around after Paige's screenshots circulated among the people Derek had already lied to. Jordan blamed Paige for making everything public, even though Paige had only answered direct questions from people already involved. Bryce asked twice whether we could meet and rebuild our friendship. The first time, I said no. The second time, I told him I was not interested in a friendship where my pain had been treated like a scheduling problem. He said, I already paid you back. I said, the money was the smallest thing you owed. We have not spoken since. The trip dates came and went. On the first day we were supposed to leave, I woke up expecting to feel bitter. Instead, I made coffee, looked at the empty space where Tessa's mug used to be, and realized there was nothing I needed to coordinate. No check-in instructions. No unpaid shares. No group texts asking me to solve transportation. No pretending. I did not get every dollar back. I lost part of the rental deposit, 2 cancellation fees, and Tessa's share. I also lost a 5-year relationship and several friendships I had believed were stronger than convenience. But I stopped paying to be disrespected. I also had to admit something uncomfortable about myself. I had used reliability as proof that I deserved to be chosen. Every reservation, every covered expense, every ride, every last-minute fix had become part of an unspoken argument I was making. Look how useful I am. Look how safe I make things. Surely that means you will not leave. That was not generosity anymore. Not entirely. Part of it was fear. Tessa exploited that fear, but I gave it too much control long before she did. I still plan things. I still keep confirmations. I still help people I trust. I am not going to turn careless just because careless people call me boring. The difference is that I no longer confuse being needed with being respected. I used to think being the dependable one meant staying calm, no matter what people did. Now I think it means being dependable to myself first. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.